Hello everybody. I'm just waiting just to check that it's all working and that Facebook is telling me that I've gone live. Zoom is telling me I've gone live. I'm streaming from Zoom into Facebook Live because I want to share my screen tonight. So I want to, rather than just talk through the blog that I've written around snacking, I thought it might be helpful to actually show you on the screen as I talk through it, because there's some numbers involved for one thing, and I think it's always a lot easier to follow what's going on when you can see it in front of you. So I'm going to share my in a moment. Just going to see how many people are joining in. I think we had about 10 people said they were going to join in, but obviously I know life gets in the way and plans don't always go to plan. So just give it a couple of minutes and see who's coming in. If you are there, do give me a like or something. I'm not sure what I can see because I'm on Zoom rather than Facebook. I may not be able to see what you're saying. I'm not sure. Oh, I can see Maria. She said hello. Hi, Maria. Anybody else? Anybody else there? Is there anybody there? Anybody? It's always the awkward bit at the beginning of the Zoom call or Facebook Live. Getting used to it now. So I'll just give it another minute or two and then I'll make a start. So, oh, here we go. I think it's Julie coming, Nell coming any moment. So if you are there, do give me a thumbs up or say hello in the comments. I'm just going to share it actually, because then people will see that I'm here. Now, I'm not sure I can do that now. I'm not getting the option to share it. Never mind. Anyway, right, well, I'm going to make a start because obviously you can all watch it on catch up, even if you don't see it live. So the first thing I'm going to do is share my screen. And Maria, as you're there, if you could let me know if you can see it when it comes up. Bear with me. Just need to open the right page first of all. So here we go. Share. So you hopefully should see in a moment my blog page on my website. So this is my website, obviously, and if you scroll to the Knowledge Centre, what happens if you hold the mouse over it is it brings up the blog, and then this is where all my blogs are. So all my previous ones that I've done, if you want to go back and read any of them. Thinking of quitting. I know there's a couple of people who've been talking about this, so that one might be a good one for you to read. But anyway, we're here to talk about snacks tonight. So I know this is a big topic. This is something that is brought up very regularly, not just in the group, but in discussions that I have with people and also with my clients. You know, snacking is such a big problem for many, many people. And I think the biggest problem is that it's done in a way that we don't appreciate just how much damage it's actually doing to our weight loss efforts. So this talk tonight is really to try and help you with that, to try and start to uncover where some of these calories are coming from, and what you might be able to do to resolve it. So here we go. So snack attacks, here's how to manage them and stop them from ruining your weight loss efforts. So here we go. So firstly, to say really, you know, as I just mentioned, you know, it's one of the biggest saboteurs of our weight loss efforts. And I know, you know, people have said to me, you know, I don't even realize I'm doing it. You know, I just find that I'm eating without even thinking, and I don't even notice that I'm eating. I just, you know, and then of course it's too late, isn't it? So that, yeah, it's a big issue. And then the other side of it is that, you know, we don't perhaps appreciate just how much each snack adds up to, you know, quite a large amount of extra calories. So that's what I'm going to go through tonight. Obviously, just to remind everybody, you know, I am not aiming my work at people who've got eating disorders or any other sort of significant mental health problems, because those sorts of things need a lot more specialist help than what I'm here to deliver. But obviously, if anything that I mentioned does raise issues for you and you need some support in terms of finding where to go for help, then obviously I can help you with that. So that said, so the first step to tackling snacking problem is to understand what's going on. And I've said before that I like to think about calorie counting or calorie control as very similar to how we might manage our money. So imagine this, and this is very much something that I would do, go to a shopping centre or go shopping online and spend a little bit here, a little bit there. So, you know, 20 quid in Marks and Spencer's, 14.99 in Boots, £3.50 in WH Smith's, £18 in Next, £15 in the Body Shop, £8.99 in Costa, £20 in Primark. Oh, I haven't done too badly. I've got quite a lot of stuff. Go home, tot it all up, think, crikey, that's over 100 quid I've just spent. Have I got 100 quid? Not always. So, you know, that's quite dangerous. And obviously, you know, if we're using cash, you can, you know, you had 100 quid in your pocket and you spent all that in cash, you would be very aware of how much you were spending. But when we can do it on our contactless card and you don't keep the receipts, then, you know, until you actually log on to your online banking or you get your statement, you've got no idea. And I think, you know, snacking is a very similar experience, I think, if we're not careful. So I'm just going to run through. This is just an example of what somebody's day might look like, okay? It may be similar or maybe completely different to yours, but if you perhaps think about this example in how it works for you, okay? So breakfast, what do you have for breakfast? So in this example, this person has had 2 scrambled eggs on a slice of toast with butter, and that could range from 300 to 400 calories, or possibly more if they've really loaded the butter on the toast. Scrambled eggs, you know, that can be variable depending on how much we put in the scrambled eggs. So I don't put anything in my scrambled eggs. I just do it in the microwave. It's quick and easy, nothing added, nice and easy to count. A slice of toast, I don't put any butter on it, but if you do, obviously then we have to consider the calories in that. And that slice of toast could be a large slice of toast, it could be a small slice of toast, it could be a thick slice, it could be a thin slice. So I've given a bit of a range here, just for you know, an estimate to give you an idea. Then lunch, that could be, you know, a chicken sandwich, or if you're a vegetarian, you might have a cheese sandwich with a bit of salad in it, maybe have a yogurt for afters. And, you know, again, that could come sort of anywhere between 400 and 600 calories, depending on how much of what the things you put in the sandwich, how thick the bread was, how much butter there was, and all of those sorts of things. Then, you know, dinner, say it might be a spaghetti bolognese, which could be a meat version or a vegetarian version, a bit of a side salad. And again, you know, that could range from 500, 800, could be less, could be more. But, you know, it's the sort of things about, you know, how much quantity are you having? What things are you putting in it? Are you putting any extra fats in there? Are you putting any butter on the spaghetti? All of those sorts of things will make a difference to how many calories are in that. So adding all of those up, we come to between 1,200 to 1,800 calories. Okay, so that's not including any snacks. Okay, so that is, you know, a fairly good calorie intake for someone who's trying to lose weight. Okay, and obviously how much weight they want to lose, you know, the calorie deficit will be the higher end or the lower end. So now let's add some snacks in. Now this list, believe me, is not unusual for someone to have in a single day. Okay, so a latte, cafe latte. So you're, you know, go through the drive-through or whatever, or you pass by the takeaways as it is at the moment, and you might grab a latte because that's your favourite coffee, you know. And of course, a latte is made with lots of milk, so that could potentially be around 200 calories. You might have a banana, yeah, pretty healthy, that's good, 120 calories. Yogurt, I'll take a healthy choice. I'll have some granola with it, yeah. That can be, I'm going to put 250. Some of them are actually more. Some of them could be 300, 350. Blueberry muffin, you know, so you might have your blueberry muffin and your latte in Costa, for example. You know, well, that's already cost you 200 calories for your latte, and now you're having a 350 calorie blueberry muffin on top of that. That's 550. That's actually more than you had for breakfast. Then you might have 3 digestive biscuits, 240 calories. 4-finger Kit Kat, 220 calories. Hot chocolate, 200. Small glass of orange juice, 100. If you had large glass of orange juice, obviously it would be more than that. Packet of crisps, 150. Now that's your standard Walker's ready salted. If you had a bag of Doritos or a bag of what are the steak cut chips, or you had a grab bag, that again would be more. Handful of nuts. Now it's so easy to have too many nuts if we don't measure them. So, you know, put 300 down there is quite reasonable, well, not reasonable, but it's quite realistic in terms of how many calories there might be in a handful of nuts that's not measured. And then if we're having coffee and tea throughout the day, we had a little bit of chat about this. I can't remember if it was the members club or in this group, but about how many calories were going into sugary tea and coffee. So if you're having 4 cups of coffee or tea with 2 heaped teaspoonfuls of sugar, that's 250 calories you're adding to your day. So in total, those snacks come to 2,380 calories. Okay. And so when we add in the calories for the meal, so let's suppose you were having 1,800 calories for your meals and then you had all of those snacks, you're looking at 4,180 calories in a single day. Okay, so that's pretty serious if you are trying to lose weight. Okay, because it's not going to happen if you're eating that way. So we need to do something about this. So considering that obviously 3,500 calories is what we need to eat in addition to what our bodies need to put on a pound of fat, if you're eating an additional 2,000 or 1,500 calories a day, then it's not going to take you very long to put a pound on. And it's certainly not going to take very long to put half a stone on, you know, if you carry on eating like that, you know, regular basis. But even if you only had half of these snacks, that's still an extra 1,000 calories. So, you know, if you're saying I hardly eat anything, but you're snacking all day and you're not counting it or you're not realizing it, that is going to be why you're not losing weight, seriously. And so it's really important that we pay attention to what we're doing and understand just how much we're consuming. So now that we're aware of what's going on, what do we do about it? Well, there's quite a few things that we can do about it. And I think it's probably really important to mention that the most important thing is that you've got to want to do something about it. Because I can tell you all of these things, but if you're not really ready or you're not really wanting to do something about this, then nothing I say is going to make any difference. But if you are ready to obviously take these ideas forward, then these are things that can help you. So you'll have heard me say it before, tracking. I always advise tracking because and that includes weighing and measuring, because there's no point in tracking if we're not being accurate about how much we're tracking, because if we're putting the wrong quantities in, then we may as well not be tracking. Okay, so it's really important, and it is time really well spent because it's a really good way to educate ourselves about how much we're eating and help us make better decisions. And this came up in the group I asked you all the other day, you know, who those of you who are tracking, is it worth the effort? And the answer was a resounding yes, because of all the things that you were learning. And it's been really incredible to see, you know, the things that you are learning through doing it in terms of what difference it's making to your behaviour, which is what we want, you know, that's the whole idea of this group. So so thinking again, like, you know, it's like shopping with cash. So you imagine, you know, you've got that 100 quid in your pocket and you can only spend that 100 quid. You can't spend any more of it. You know, each time you go into a shop, how much you've spent, how much you've got left. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's all we're doing at the end of the day. And, you know, if we think our money is important enough to manage, why is it not important enough to manage what we're eating if it's a problem? Obviously, if it's not a problem for us and we're not putting on weight and we don't need to lose it, then we don't need to do this stuff. But if it is a problem and everything you're doing at the moment isn't working, then this really is something you need to do. Otherwise, nothing is going to change, seriously. Okay, next one, put some limits on how many snacks you'll have. So just say to yourself, you know, I'm going to have 3 snacks a day, and this is what they're going to be. And, you know, if one of those snacks is something really, you know, something you really love and you know it's not the healthiest, then it doesn't matter, because if you don't include those sorts of things, you're only going to end up going off the rails and having too much of them on another day. So you may as well allow yourself, give yourself permission to have what you like, and incorporate it into your calorie allowance. And that way it's a win-win, because you're getting what you want and you're not overeating. I like to think of it, I've said this before, about having sort of an 80-20 rule. So if 80% of my food is good quality, unprocessed as much as possible, unrefined, lots of fruit and vegetables and, you know, lean foods, then I've got 20% to have a bit of play with. So that's my favourite. You know, I don't like to use the word naughty, because I don't like to judge food, because otherwise, that can sort of create unhealthy attitudes, which aren't helpful. But just sort of thinking about foods that are in support of our goals and perhaps foods that are not in support of our goals. So, it gives you sort of 20% to play with, so that you don't feel like you're depriving yourself of anything. I think that's really important. Planning. Now, there is no way around this, I'm sorry, but if you want to get on top of managing your weight, you have to plan. Okay. If we don't plan, then we are planning to fail. Okay, because we'll never make any progress. There might be the odd rarity where someone is able to do this, but generally speaking, planning is really important. So that means planning in advance what you're going to have. So a really, really big part of staying in control. Because if we wait until we're hungry before we decide what we're going to do, we're much more in danger of making an unwise decision that is not in support of our goals, because our hunger gets the better of us. It's really, really powerful. It's a drive to eat. So if we're having to fight off a really strong hunger signal, and we're confronted with all the things that we really, we really want to eat, then we're gonna take the path of least resistance, and we're going to end up eating too much of it as well, because we're not in control. So if you know in advance what you're going to have for your snack, and you don't wait until you get too hungry for it, then you'll stay in control. And then the flip side of that is obviously, don't eat if you are not physically hungry, because this is just not what our bodies need us to do. So the simple fact is that if we are not hungry, our body does not need food. If our body does not need food, what's it going to do with the food we eat? It's going to turn it into fat. Do we want to turn into fat? Do we want to put more fat on? The answer is no. So really, really work on this. If this is an issue for you about eating when you're not hungry, really, really work on why it's not a good idea. And why it's not a good idea. The simple fact is that you will put on weight. Do you want to put on weight? No. So, really, really work on that. It's so important. So one way of doing that is to be really in tune with what your body needs and what your body is telling you. So you've got that emotional brain that's going, oh, but it's going to be, eating this is going to make me feel better. No, it's not. It really is not. So you've got to pay attention and argue back, because that emotional voice does not rule you. If you let it rule you, it will, but you don't have to let it rule you. Okay. Next one is don't get too hungry, and be prepared for emergencies. So I always have at least 2 snacks in my bag. I don't eat them when I'm not hungry, so that's okay, but they're always there, because I never know when I'm going to get caught out. And when I get caught out, that's when I know I'm my own worst enemy, and I will end up overeating because I've got too hungry. So I don't allow myself to get too hungry. We talked about eating on the hunger scale, so sort of thinking about when is the best time to eat. So it's really sort of, when you're about a 7 out of 10. So if you're 0 or 1 out of 10, you're not hungry. If you're 10 out of 10, you're starving. You're likely to lose control. You're likely to eat too fast. You're likely to eat the wrong things. You're likely to eat too much. Whereas when you're 7, you're hungry enough to eat. Your body needs food, but you can stay in control of what you're eating. So really try and aim to be a 7. Okay. But obviously if you're tracking your food as well, then you can really help yourself to stay in control here. And if you're reminding yourself all the time of your goals, thinking about that motivation, keep working on it. It's not going to work on itself. You need to keep tapping into it daily to remind yourself of what you're trying to do here. Otherwise it's just not going to work, because you're trying to overcome your desires to eat all those lovely foods that you like. And that is our path of least resistance, is to be drawn to those things. And we have to change what we want, for one thing, and that's by working on our motivation. And we need to build up that self-control and recognizing that we are in control. So next one, this one's so important. Understand, recognize and accept the consequences. So for example, you wouldn't shoplift, I hope you wouldn't, because you'd get into trouble. You might get caught, and if you got caught, what would happen? You end up down the police station, you end up with a criminal record. It's socially and morally and practically an absolute disaster for your life if you ended up in that situation, because it's going to be on your criminal record. It's going to make it difficult to get another job. You might lose the job you've got. There's big consequences there, so we don't do it, generally speaking. So really think about this in the same way. So don't take what you can't afford. You can't afford to snack, because it is going to cost you in the long run. Okay, if you continue to snack in an uncontrolled way, like that list that I shared earlier, if that is you, or if there's an element of you in that on some days, do you really want to have to deal with those consequences in the long run? If you think it's hard now, just think how hard it'll be in another few years' time if you haven't changed your snacking behaviours. What have happened to your weight? Will it be more than it is at the moment? If so, how much more? If you're eating 4,000 calories a day, and you only need 2,000 calories a day, you're going to put on a lot of weight in a few years if you carry on eating in that way. Or even if you even eat 3,000 calories a day instead of 2,000, you're still going to be a lot heavier in a few years' time. And what that is going to lead to in terms of the impact on your body, on your health. And if you want to be in good health in the long run, then continuing to eat in this way is not going to serve you at all. Nobody wants to deal with ill health, but that is ultimately what we're choosing when we continue to behave in ways that do not support our health and our desire to have a healthy body that will last as long as we need to. So we've really got to have these things in the forefront of our minds, not try and push them under the carpet, because all the time we do that, we're just ignoring it, and that's not dealing with it. In terms of food, be careful about what you're choosing. So sugar cravings is something that I think a lot of people struggle with when it comes to snacking. It's like, oh, I'm just craving sugar. Now, the problem is that we want to eat more sugary snacks, and the more sugary snacks we eat, the more we want to eat them. And it doesn't help that sugary snacks are hidden in many, many places. So it's really important to understand what you're eating. Check the labels on things. This is again where tracking will help you, because it will be able to inform you around, how much carbohydrates are in things and how much of those actually turn into sugar. And it's really quite revealing in terms of what's in some foods. So it's kind of really, really good informative process to track food. So check the label on things, and if you want to start making substitutes, then fruit is great, but be careful you're eating the whole fruit, not just the juice, because you need the fibre content to overcome the sugar cravings, and your body will deal with the whole fruit differently to how it deals with the juice. So it's much better to have the whole fruit. Things like dark chocolate, Greek yogurt, unsalted nuts, anything that's not tasting sweet. But even things like like raisins can at least be a better choice. If you really do need something sweet, then raisins are great because they are sweet. They're dried fruit. But again, be really careful to weigh your portions of these things, because they are quite high in calories. And so you obviously really need to be clear about how much of them you're having. It's all very well having them, but if you're still having as many calories, you may not be better off. You won't be better off. So yeah, it's really important to think about, what is an actual portion of these things, and make sure you stick to that. Really try to avoid packaged snacks with lots of sugar in them. So there's lots of these things that make it so easy for us. They come in these nice pretty boxes, and they tell us they're low fat, and they tell us they're high fibre, and they tell us all these things, and they're nice as long as you can stick to just having one, and it doesn't lead you to have another one a couple of hours later, because it's the sugar in them that's kind of making you want more. So it's just being really aware of that. Taking responsibility for our decisions. Now, this is such an important factor to bear in mind. So remembering that cravings, they can be strong, they can be very strong, but they don't make us eat. They make us want to eat, but we are still making the decision to actually eat, and it's because we choose to do so. Nobody's making us do it. If we say we can't stop because we're craving it, that all we're doing is taking away the responsibility and taking away the power. And whereas if we accept the craving, so okay, I know I'm craving sugar, but it's not going to kill me. I'll get through it. I'll just go and do something else. The more you resist it, the easier it will get, and the cravings will lessen the less sugar you consume. So it's kind of like a double benefit here, to resist it and eat things that are not containing sugar, and those cravings will start to go away. And of course, it's important to remember that the snacking is often habit-based as well. So we need to take responsibility to develop new habits, and also can be driven by emotional eating. So obviously, whilst making practical changes around snacking behaviours, we also need to look at the, what's driving the emotional eating. So I did do another blog on that. So do take a look at that if you find that that's relevant for you. If you haven't already, if you have already, then go back and have another look, because it probably won't hurt you to do that. Having some strategies in place as your plan B, because you know when you're vulnerable, all of the times that you snack. So journal it and think of every scenario you possibly can that you find difficult, and then write the new story, write the new plan as to how you're going to deal with it, so that when it actually happens, you've got your plan in place of what you're going to do. And you haven't got to decide, you haven't got to think, you've already made up your mind what you're going to do. Whereas if you don't do that, you're just going to fall back into the old behaviour. No matter how strong-willed you are, you will fall back into your old pattern, because you haven't thought about how you're going to deal with these things. You've got the experience, so use it. And allow yourself some treats. Let's say not every single snack has to be healthy. If you have certain favourite snacks that are not the most healthy, then limiting them is sensible, but cutting them out is, let's face it, it's unrealistic, because we're just going to want them more. So if you plan how you can have them, and they're accommodated within your calorie allowance, then there's no problem, is there? You can have it. So planning is really important, absolutely vital. So here's an alternative scenario for this person's day. So they're still having the scrambled eggs on the slice of toast, but this time there's no butter, don't need it. Okay. So we've managed to shave off 100 calories here. I've left the lunch and the dinner the same, because I thought I don't want to mess about this too much, because this is all really about snacking. So there's now 1100 to 1700 calories in this person's meals, which is still the range generally needed for a calorie deficit. That's great. But we're going to add some snacks in now, again with some ballpark calorie amounts, and you could have some or all of them. So if you had all of them, they would add up to 630 calories. So that'd be three teas or coffees with semi-skim milk with no sugar, 100 grams of Greek yogurt, strawberries and a sprinkle of granola. That's a lovely kind of combination of food groups there. 2-finger Kit Kat, which you could have as your treat, handful of nuts with a banana, again, which is a combination of food groups. And I'm going to come on to that in a minute. 250 calories. So that would be a reasonable balance of snacks through the day. Okay, and you could get away with that. So if you were trying to have calorie deficit, then you definitely wouldn't want all of them. You'd also be wanting to reduce the totals in your meals to the lower end. So you'd want to be in the 1100 range here. And if you have the snacks, which would put you into 1730 calories. Whereas if you were a man needing 2500 calories a day, then you would still be in a deficit doing this. So this is just an example. You need to play around with this and see what works for you, and what sort of things you like to eat, what's in your snacks that you absolutely don't want to get rid of, and how you might be able to adjust the quantities, how you might be able to perhaps if you desperately want that blueberry muffin, why not cut it in half and spread it over 2 days, for example? That could be done. That could be done, or spread it over 2 snacks in 1 day. There's all sorts of ways you could do it that will really help to cut down the number of calories, but the key thing is that you know what you're doing, you know how much you're having. That is what makes the difference. So I had some questions that came in, thank you very much. So I'm going to go through them now, through the answers, and hopefully this will cover everything. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick look in the comments and see if anybody has put any further questions in. So the first question I had was, is it better to have 3 regular meals with snacks in between while staying within your calorie allowance, or just have 3 meals with gaps in between? So my answer to that is basically, doesn't matter. It's very personal. You have to kind of do what works for you. So what will help you to stick with your goals? So obviously there are benefits and drawbacks to both. So personally, I find, because I tend not to have breakfast until quite late in the morning, if I have it at all, then I'm not not really hungry for a snack, I'll just go straight into lunch. So I don't need one in the morning, but I will usually have one in the afternoon, and sometimes in the evening, depending on what time I've had my evening meal. So I had it sort of late, a bit later than usual today, so I probably won't have a snack this evening. But I don't know, I might do. I'll wait and see. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter as long as you stay within your calorie allowance and are only eating when you're hungry. Those are the two key things, really. And then how you split them up, it's up to you. Does an element of intermittent eating come in? Is it better to give a good few hours for your body to process the last meal and then get hungry again? Yeah, so this is about intermittent eating, is where you're taking long breaks between meals. Now, my take on that really is, if you can do it, and there are some studies that showing having a long break from eating can have health benefits, then if you can do that as a way of controlling how many calories you eat, and as long as you're still getting the nutrition that you need, then there's nothing wrong with that. But if you find that it makes you really, really hungry, and then you lose all your resolve, then you're actually not going to be any better off, because you can't stick to it. So you have to do what works for you. And again, it's as simple as that. We're all different. If you're going to snack, should it be a quick energy fix or a slow release snack? Does that depend on how you're feeling and what you're about to do next activity wise? So the answer to that is yes, absolutely. It does depend on how you're feeling and what you're going to do. So if you're about to go and do some exercise, like going for a run, or you're just feeling really, really sort of tired and you want an energy boost, so you need to go and do something that requires some energy, then a quick energy release carbohydrate snack, such as a ripe banana, or some orange juice, 4 or 5 jelly babies, or a sports energy gel would be ideal. But if you're sedentary, and you're not going to be exercising until later, then something that's more slow release would be better, because then you'll still be sort of ready for you when you need it. And there is at the bottom of this, I've got a couple of links to some articles that give you some information about what sort of foods are quick and what sort of foods really are slow release carbohydrates, because they are kind of what we want to keep us going if we're trying to think about staying fuller for longer. And it's easy if you're looking for slow energy release carbohydrate snacks. It's really easy to make even a high release carbohydrate snack more slow release, simply by adding protein and fat to a carbohydrate. And what we mean by slow release is how slowly the body releases the energy from that food that we've just eaten. So the quicker it releases the energy, the more we use it up, and then the more we want sooner. Whereas if it's slow release, we stay fuller for longer and we don't feel the need to be so hungry. So having slow release snacks will really help in terms of appetite control. Why can't I control myself? Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And it doesn't, unfortunately, have a simple answer. There are various reasons why we don't control ourselves. And so obviously I can't answer all of that. But what I would say is, if you're feeling like it's a compulsion, and it's really strong and there's nothing you can do about it, then, and that happens sort of all the time, then that is an indication that you might need some specialist help to work that out, because it's not a simple solution in terms of just changing your habits. Okay. But if you are able to exercise control at least some of the time, then actually that demonstrates that you can control yourself. And so it may simply be down to the language that you're using when you're talking to yourself, and the habits that you're engaging in response to situations. So, for example, when we say we can't do something, it often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what we're doing is we're taking our responsibility away. We're saying, well, I can't do it, so I'm not even going to try. So we don't put the effort in. If we believe in that we can't do something, then we don't put 100% effort into it, because we don't believe it's going to work. So if we say, I can't do it, then no, you can't. Whereas if you actually turn that around and say, well, actually I can do it because I've done it before, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to plan for it, and I'm going to put all my effort into it, then we're taking responsibility, and we're absolutely choosing to control ourselves. And then the more we practice these things, and we practice new behaviours in response to these situations, because it's often the situations that we fall into these patterns of behaviour. If we've got that strategy ready for, like, if X happens, then I'm going to do Y instead of Z, you know, we have that ability. We just don't use it. We've all got the ability to do these things. So it does take time and effort. Okay, so we have to want to do it. This is what I was saying earlier. You know, it doesn't matter how much I say tonight, if you're not ready and if you're not willing and you're not wanting this enough, then nothing's going to change. So you have to really work on, is this what you want? If it is, then you'll find a way of doing it. And of course, snacking can be a way of making us feel better, and we may feel scared to give it up. So if I stop snacking, how am I going to make myself feel better? Then, you know, it's about working on, well, what are other ways that you could feel better? In what are other ways that you can treat and reward yourself to get that same feeling of satisfaction? Because food ultimately doesn't really do it for us, does it? I mean, it might do and in the moment, but then we're dealing with the consequences of it again, aren't we? And that's just so short-lived. So go back and read that bit about the consequences if you're thinking that snacking is going to make you feel better, because it won't. Okay, not really. So we need to reframe this by considering, what will we gain by gaining control over our snacking behaviour? And that's what you want to work towards. Okay. And do have a look at the blog on emotional eating if this is a big problem for you, because it does cover some steps on how you can manage it. And also, I think often it comes down to how much we're prioritising ourselves and our well-being. Because if we're not doing this, you know, what is getting in the way? What is stopping you? Is it that you don't value yourself enough to put the effort in? Are you the bottom of your list? Is everybody else getting what they need? What are you getting? Because, you know, that whole saying about you can't drink from an empty cup, or you can't pour from an empty cup. And I like the one that's, you know, put your own oxygen mask on first. You know, that's what the flight attendants tell us when we get on aeroplanes. Any of those of us who've been on aeroplanes, you know, that's what they say. Why do you think they say put your own oxygen mask on first if you've got children with you? Because if you can't breathe, how on earth are you going to save your children? How on earth are you going to look after them? It's the same principle here. If you're not looking after yourself, how can you be the best for everybody else that you want to be the best for, as well as for yourself? So again, that's really important to think about, really important. Next question. As I'm such a sugar addict, do you think I should stop sugary treats and swap for fruit? Yes, absolutely. The more sugary things we consume, the more we want to consume. So if you have a look again at the section above about being careful what we choose, but what I would say is ideally don't have the fruit on its own, because fruit on its own isn't actually very satisfying. So ideally you want to add some fat and protein to the meal. So something like Greek yogurt and berries is brilliant. And then the next question is, what are the most satisfying snacks to have? And these will be things that release their energy the most slowly. So those slow release carbohydrates, and that list at the end that I've mentioned. But ideally, you really want to try and get all three macronutrients in every snack. So that's your protein, fat and carbohydrates, because that slows down the digestion and it will keep you fuller for longer and make the energy go further in over a period of time, that is. So that you will reduce the need to snack. So you know, if you have a really high energy release snack, you're probably going to be hungry again in an hour. If you have a slow release one and the right quantity of it and eat it nice and slowly, then you know you could potentially keep going until dinner without realizing you wanted to snack, because you don't feel like it, because you start to tune into what your body is telling you it needs. That's so important, is, you know, we're listening to our bodies. Are homemade snacks better than shop bought, like cake bars? Yes. If trying to reduce sugar cravings or trying to eat more healthily, cake bars are really not the most ideal thing to have. Homemade snacks are always better if you're at home, because you've got control over what you're putting into them. But when obviously out and about, things with nuts or oats that haven't got too much sugar in are much better than something like a cake bar. But if the cake bar is your treat and you've allowed for it, then, you know, knock yourself out, have your cake bar. But just don't, you know, just bear in mind, you know, if that is a real weakness for you and you know you can't stick to one, then maybe don't have any. you know yourself best, and it's one of these things that over time you will learn how to manage yourself. I mean, some of you know that I couldn't keep chocolate in the house without eating all of it. Now I can get chocolate go out of date, and I will have half a chocolate bar, like let's say a Mars bar. I'll cut it in half because I think the whole one is too much for me now. So I'll just have half, and then I'll have the other half the next day, or the next time I'm hungry, whatever. Because I have learned over a long period of time, I've learned how to manage my snacks. And if I can do it, so can you. Believe me, you just got to want to, and you've just got to put the right things in place, and it will happen. You've got to keep trying, keep being persistent, keep practicing, because this ultimately is about developing new habits, really. So it's not going to happen overnight, but you have to keep putting the effort in. Okay. The other thing about being out and about, avoid flapjacks. Really avoid flapjacks, because they are absolutely packed. They're made with syrup. So that's what glues them all together, and they're often topped with chocolate, and they're made with butter. They are so calorie dense. So really, really avoid flapjacks. And all they're going to do is make you want to crave more sugar. So go back to the question above about some homemade snacks. And this is just a very, very small variety. And I know there's lots of people in the group. We've got lots of good ideas about healthy snacks. And please feel free to share them, because I think, we can all do with learning more. And I am definitely not the best cook. My imagination is very poor when it comes to interesting foods, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. I can tell you what's good to put in foods, but when it comes to actually making really nice, interesting looking recipes, it's not me. Having said that, though, I have got my hands on a recipe book that I'm going to be putting together to share with you, and also some of you are going to be contributing to it as well, so that's really, really exciting. Watch this space on that. Next question: how many snacks a day should someone eat, if any at all? Well, I would suggest no more than 3 or 4. Regardless of how many, they need to be incorporated within your calorie allowance and when you're hungry. So, but having said that, though, if you don't like, having 3 meals a day, then there's nothing wrong with breaking that down into smaller and a larger number of meals with smaller calories. So you could potentially have 6 snacks a day that work out for your calorie allowance. There's no rules about this. It's what works for you that means that you're going to stay within your calorie goal. That's all that matters, really, if you're trying to lose weight, and that you're getting obviously the right nutrients. That's the other really important thing. So really, it's just what works for you, and that might take time to figure out. And you might need to experiment. You might need to talk to people. You might need to ask other people what they do, and get some ideas. So in conclusion, there is absolutely nothing wrong with snacking, as long as we're doing with full awareness. But we have to know and understand what and how much we're having, how we can accommodate them within our daily energy intake in order to achieve our goals and make sure we're hungry when we eat them. So planning ahead is absolutely key. So that's the end of the blog. See, there's the link there to my top 10 tips for eating less without dieting, which also does go into some things more generally, which will include reducing how much you snack. So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, if you're eating your meals more slowly, making healthier food choices may help you stay satisfied for longer, and therefore you may naturally want to snack less, just because you've changed your habits. But really key thing is cutting out the sugary stuff, because that is just going to make you want more. And yeah, if you've got to tackle that. You absolutely got to tackle that. And then, of course, there is my book. So if you haven't got it yet and you want to, then there's the link there. And again, we go into all of the sort of like the behaviours around why we do what we do. Really helps you to explore that for yourself. What gets in your way. So if you are struggling, then that is definitely going to help you. I know others who have been through it have shared their feedback, which is great. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, go back into the group, and hopefully be able to see what you've been saying. Where are we? Hang on, I need to go on my other computer, I think. Hang on, bear with me, folks. think I can. Here we go. Right, massive thanks. Thank you, David. Sometimes, especially when gyms reopen, once I've eaten a curry, I'd like to go straight to the gym and burn it off. I would say maybe leave it a couple of hours, David, because you need to let it digest. You might get a stitch. But yeah, and portion control is obviously important there. Your snacks are Muller rice, low-fat yogurts and protein bars throughout the day. I have 2 slim fast shakes and 1 main meal, loads of water and green tea. If you're staying within your calorie allowance and you're getting sufficient nutrition, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Again, you know, it's really about what works for you. So it says there's 12 comments there, but I'm only seeing 4 of them. So I don't know if there's anyone else who said anything that I can't see. Sorry, I'm going to have another look, see if the notifications will tell me. Let's have a look. No, I can't see any other comments. So I will going to finish it now, but obviously at the end, I will go through and answer any of them on the in the group once I've had a look and see what they are. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope that was useful. I will post the link to the blog in the group, so you'll be able to have a look at that as well and have a reread of it. Obviously the video will be available shortly to rewatch for anyone who's not been able to watch it live, or if you want to watch it again. So I will see you all very soon. Thank you very much. Bye.